this is Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to Rosterwatch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to Rosterwatch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to Rosterwatch.
Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the internet, this is the Lisa Ann Fantasy Draft Show with Rosterwatch. I'm Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier, your boys from Rosterwatch.com, joined by, of course, our favorite guest, Lisa Ann. Lisa, how are you today?
You know, I'm great, Alex. I listen to your voice so often that it's always exciting when I get to do a show and it almost trips me out. Cody, you know that feeling. You start listening to somebody and then you pair up and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm in this show and I'm ready for this season.
Dude, it's back. Lisa, we made it.
So excited.
We made it. We're so back.
I'm so great.
Man. So super pumped to be here. We're going to be talking over some fantasy football draft strategy with you here, kind of commingling with Lisa's fans and Lisa kind of our fans know Lisa very well from being on our podcast and stuff like that. But we've been friends for a really long time. We love getting together and talking ball. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be using the ultimate draft cheat sheet available at rosterwatch.com, where if you follow the 3 simple rules at the top of the sheet of paper, an expert quality draft is always guaranteed. And we're going to run some simulations using the ultimate draft cheat sheet, the only tool that you'll need to dominate your fantasy football draft, but also kind of bring you up to speed about what's going on with NFL training camps as they pertain to our fantasy football fortunes here in 2024. At Roster Watch, we have basically half our guys out on the road right now. We've been to 11 different training camps, so we have some news and insight to bring from those. Cody gets on the road next week, so we'll have Trash Man co-hosting here with us. But Lisa, I think the biggest thing, I mean, it's like the elephant in the room for fantasy is, what do you make of the Christian McCaffrey calf strain? Is it anything that you're worried about? He's currently going 101 across all fantasy football formats outside of Superflex, where you can start 2 quarterbacks. Are you worried? Is he still your 101? What are you thinking?
You know, it is concerning because we do know calves can linger, but it doesn't worry as much with a player like Christian McCaffrey who wants to play regardless, right? He'll play through an injury. But it does have to make you second guess if you're in multiple leagues. You know, I was listening to Bob Harris and Mike Dempsey this morning, and I realized something that Mike said that's so important when we're giving out advice. Maybe to us, Christian McCaffrey wouldn't be our number 1 because we're in multiple leagues. But if someone is only in 1 or 2, I think the decision is so much heavier because you don't want to miss out. And it's a calf, though, and we've seen the calf linger. So I'm kind of in, I'm kind of out. I hope I don't get stuck in that situation of having to make that decision.
Well, I mean, here's the thing to me, and Cody, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, but I think that some context, and I got to give credit to this guy on X. His name is Dr. Edwin Poros, and he's at FB Injury Doc. He has a pretty good take here. I guess he's a doctor, but he says that based on one study that 25 of 27, so 93% of subjects, they returned to play whenever it was a calf strain. So he says they're rarely serious. The mean missed time was 17 to 31 days. And he's guessing that based on all this stuff that he's been told around 2 weeks by the medical staff, and he thinks it's probably a ramp up issue that he was having with it as far as a re-injury rate. So he said 2 out of 25 in the study since 2018, 2 out of 25 had a re-injury in season if they had a calf strain preseason. So can they linger? Yeah, they can, like Lisa said. But as far as it being a whole new injury that keeps you out for another 17 to 30 days, that only happened 2 out of 25 times. And it actually says here that 0 of 25 had a recurrence of more than 1 calendar year to the next. So it's not like one that you get a calf 1 year and then you're just going to be due to get it the next year. Like some of these, you think about Odell Beckham, who would always have it would always be a hamstring. You just be like, gosh, every year.
Julio Jones, as well, right?
Don't even get me started. So I think we're still good with McCaffrey. I mean, even me, Bob, if Bob's saying that he might not take him sometimes, and just because he plays in so many leagues, like I'm still, every time I get the 101, I'm taking McCaffrey. Cody?
I'm a little worried. I'm a little more worried than it sounds like than you guys are. The thing is, when I think about McCaffrey's injury history, and back to Carolina, the days where you felt like, well, he's been the 101 for the last 2 years. He's been prolific. He's been LaDainian Tomlinson-esque. I thought he was going to start phasing out. He didn't. He was actually healthy the last couple of years. None of his injuries in Carolina were a calf strain. He had a calf strain, though, on December 31st of this last year, week 17, right?
Yeah. So, yes.
The same calf strain. And now he has it again August 4th. And
so there actually has been one season to season, but it happened after that study was done. And
correct.
And that person was Christian McCaffrey.
And the only thing I'm going to bring up is, you remember how big the Joe Burrow calf strain was a couple years ago, right? And I know it's a different position. Quarterbacks push off the calves and stuff like that, but also it's pretty important for a running back, especially Christian McCaffrey. Burrow strained his calf on July 27th at practice and training camp last year, and he returned to practice on August 30th. So that's a month later. He started the season on time, but he aggravated it in week 2 and did not look like himself the next 4 weeks. So you can say it's not like a thing that's going to continue to happen, but it did happen in December. He put the pads back on this July, August. It happened again. I'm assuming he's going to sit out the rest of the preseason, be ready for week 1. I'm a little worried about it. Like, I think it would be less worried if you didn't see that December 31st one and it was just like a random calf strain. I think I might feel a little bit different, but seeing the one at the end of last year definitely has me a little bit worried. Not saying I'm going to go out and draft Bijan 101 or Tyreek Hill, but I might think about it.
All right. So here we go. What we're gonna do is we're gonna run a simulation here using the ultimate draft cheat sheet at rosterwatch.com. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this into the draft simulator over at Fantasy Pros. I've got it loaded in here, and it's already given us the 4th pick here in this thing. So basically what we're going to be doing is, when you use the cheat sheet at rosterwatch.com, there are 3 simple rules at the top of the sheet of paper. As long as you follow those 3 simple rules, you're always going to get an expert quality draft. These things are updated. They're updated every day. Or they're tested maniacally every day, but they're not always updated every day. But it updates with all the new injury news, with all the new news from camps, the depth chart news, all the rest of it. And as we go through this first mock draft, I think you'll see that there are certain players that we're going to be high on. We're going to see where Lisa is on some of these guys. So this setup here is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense, and 6 bench spots. Just a regular PPR 12-team home league sort of setup. It's drafting against the ADPs of all the major sites like Sleeper, ESPN, Yahoo, CBS Sports, My Fantasy League, RT Sports, all of them, as well as the pre-draft rankings that your competitors are going to be using in the rankings queue. It also brings in the expert consensus rankings at Fantasy Pros. So it gives you a good simulation each time. This draft here goes 101 Christian McCaffrey, of course, 102 CeeDee Lamb, 103 Tyreek Hill. That's kind of how things go. Lisa, for us, Cody and I had a big discussion on the show the other day about Breece Hall versus Bijan Robinson and where we are on this. We had to make a change to this cheat sheet because we were worried we were not getting enough Breece Hall, because Breece Hall is going ahead of Bijan right now. If you slot Breece Hall 1 slot ahead of Bijan Robinson, it turns out your users can get a bunch of both of these guys, and we like them both a bunch. I'm curious, is there one of these players that you like more than one or the other?
So looking at them both and feeling the same as you, really equal. I mean, I think Breece Hall and Bijan, we know Bijan's situation is even better than it was last season. So what I'm going to do with 2 players in this situation that are so neck and neck is I'm going to say, you know what? Bijan has the opportunity of not dealing with weather. So I would take Bijan in this situation over Breece Hall. Now, This wouldn't be across the board in all of my drafts, but though I'm going to be in 25 or 30 best ball drafts, I'm going to be in 20 redraft leagues. So I will then look at the venue and be like, okay, you know, it's playing in a dome. I'm good with this. This is less rain, weather, and everything that could affect Breece Hall in the Northeast.
Look, and I want to be clear. I personally would take Bijan over Breece Hall myself as well. I'm a giant Bijan fan. Clearly, you see the Texas Hill Country here behind me on my, seeing Bijan at Texas was something to behold. But it's not just because I'm a huge Bijan fan. I think he's awesome. I think, like you said, the situation is just so vastly improved. With that said, I am showing off the cheat sheet right now, and so I'm going to have to go with what the cheat sheet tells me to do and take Breece Hall here, and we'll see what happens with the rest. The reason being is that Breece Hall has the higher ADP, and he can sometimes fall to 7 or 8. Whereas Breece Hall never falls past 6. So structurally, it's the way that we have to build it. So Lisa Ann and I would take Bijan, The cheat sheet, though, says to take Breece Hall, and I always trust the cheat sheet to make sure and give us a great balanced team. So that's how that goes. All right, so up next, we had a bunch of players go off here, and we get back around to the 207. I'm sorry, the 208, and the cheat sheet is giving us a choice between Isiah Pacheco and Chris Olave. Generally, in this kind of deal, the rule that I always follow is that I want to take the player that makes the roster more balanced, which is the wide receiver. With that being said, do you have any thoughts about Olave this year about Isiah Pacheco? My main thought about Pacheco is, gosh, it seems like the competition behind him sure is bad.
Yeah, it seems like a really difficult decision week by week too of putting in your lineup. I don't really feel the same about Olave. We know the upside with Olave is incredible. Pacheco always comes on too late, and it's usually after by Mageddon when you've already had to put him back on the waiver wire because you needed to replace a spot. But again, looking at them both, I'm taking Olave in a season long and Pacheco in best ball all day long.
So these guys are next to one another on the sheet, so you can choose between them. I agree with Lisa. We're going to go Chris Olave here. All right, the cheat sheet doesn't give us any choice here. We're going to have to take Devon Achane here, which I love taking as far as his upside. Cody, any worries at all from you about the rookie Jaylen Wright there in Miami taking possible carries away from Devon Achane?
I do worry a little bit about Devon Achane from a total carries perspective, given he's 185 pounds. What we've seen them do with Raheem Mostert in the past, even to the extent of Jeff Wilson in this offense out of the backfield. And Jaylen Wright, you could argue, is a better talent and a better prospect than both of those running backs, and also carries the weight to withstand a season long. But the problem is Devon Achane has 45, 50-point upside in any given week. So when he is healthy, you can't go against Devon Achane. We do like Josh Jacobs and Mike Evans, but I think you definitely prefer the upside that Devon Achane brings to the table.
Lisa, do you think he can stay healthy the whole season?
I mean, we can never predict this, right? We can hope so. We just know that when he is, and then you look at the games that he misses, he's going to balance out with a player that you might have taken and been able to play an extra 2 weeks. His upside is insane. So I'm going to go with that. And just, this is what we have to do. Some weeks you're playing him, some weeks you're just not.
I think it's interesting, this next pick. The cheat sheet says we have to take Malik Neighbors, so that's going to be the pick. He's the rookie for the Giants. Cody and I's number one prospect, even over Marvin Harrison in the NFL draft this year. Now, I feel like Marvin Harrison's landing spot a little bit better. Lisa, what do you think about having your fantasy fortunes attached to Daniel Jones, being up there in the Big Apple yourself? I mean, are you okay with this?
It's concerning, and I really love how they approached it on Hard Knocks, really discussing how many games he's missed, right? Reminding like, hey, we like this guy. This is where, this is this tough decision, but we need to prepare just in case. He hasn't gone a season without an injury. That is incredibly concerning, and it's not just because of the injury history. It's because the constant need to ramp back up and get into football shape. And we know that we're on such a limited time in this season to do these things. So it's a bummer for Neighbors for sure. I mean, could you imagine Malik Neighbors in Kansas City and how we'd be feeling about the draft pick? I mean, just give one example of a different quarterback, and all of a sudden your favorite prospect is like, oh my gosh, it's changed. So, you got to trust him, but it is something to really think about.
We're up here next with James Conner and Tank Dell, and Tank Dell to me feels, Lisa, a little bit like the Devon Achane thing, where it's like, gosh, man, we saw just a monster upside, but the guy's small. James Conner is an interesting case too, because he has a rookie that was drafted, Trey Benson, who they took on day 2, who's a super fast, big dude. But the quotes from Jonathan Gannon and Camp and from the media out there, they're acting like they're on big tilt with Trey Benson, like he's not getting it done. So I think I really like the Cardinals offense this year. I think that Conner is a reasonable pick here in the 5th round, but we already do have 2 running backs. We have the availability to start 2 flexes. I'm going with Tank Dell here, but I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. I feel like, knowing how this sheet goes, I think leaning wide receiver here. I think we're going to get a couple running backs here in the next few rounds. So I'm going to go with Dell, but I'd be interested to hear, if you guys were making this choice, where you would lean between James Conner and Tank Dell. Cody, like he wants Conner.
I mean, I want Conner here, but we just had the same conversation about Achane and the upside and the.
I know, but Cody, I'm playing for first place, brother. Come on, dude. You're last.
But I mean, you got the fast start. You got the strength of schedule tool over rosterwatch.com that tells you James Conner has a fast start the first 6 weeks of the season. And if you have any angst or any nervousness about having Devon Achane as your RB2, having James Conner in a backfield that they've told you he's the clear-cut RB1, it makes me feel a little bit better. But it is Tank Dell. So,
Lisa, do you think the Tank Dell can get through a season?
I respect the argument, Cody. That was so good because you're absolutely right, especially thinking about the tools at Roster Watch with the strength of schedule. So I'm like, okay, I wasn't there. But this is such a great example for anyone in a draft room who begins to potentially panic. And this is why you want to mock draft. This is why you want to be paying attention here, because I understand what you're saying, Alex. Like, you're worried about having too many running backs. You want to get yourself this solid wide receiver. How much is Stephon Diggs going to take away from Tank Dell? How much is Stephon Diggs going to open up for Tank Dell? It's a roll of the dice, but I love CJ Stroud, and I would love to go Tank Dell here as well. But then Cody sells me on, what if Achane? But we can't do what if right now. We've got to take the stronger player, so Tank Dell it is.
Tank Dell. All right, take Tank Dell. Oh, look at this, Cody. We get a good running back anyway, right? So we got to take David Montgomery here. Look, I'm not sure I would depend on him as my running back too, but Lisa, doesn't it feel like if your running back two is an Achane, where you're taking the ultimate kind of upside play, right? You can look at even in PPR, you think about it, you're like, oh, David Montgomery, he's a plotter. Like, I'm not sure in PPR if I really, if this is a dude that I really want, or somebody who is going to be able to have any kind of reasonable floor because of the reception volume. What's so hard to believe, and I couldn't believe it when I was doing our scoring distribution tool, is that as far as guys that bust, like guys that get you less than 10 fantasy points in PPR over the last 2 years, if you take David Montgomery, now this is only from last season, right? But he only got you less than 10 points in PPR 11.76% of the time. He does not bust. The only guy who busts less frequently, less than 10 points in PPR than David Montgomery, is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he gets you 10 points less than Breece Hall, less than Bijan Robinson, less than Saquon, less than Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs busts 3 times as often as David Montgomery. So I do think that taking him here, at least, if you do have the upside pick of Achane early, right, this kind of gives you the opportunity to take a safe pick here with David Montgomery. And it's going to give us another running back here. Cody, do you want to talk about Najee Harris? I think here in the 7th round, it's not a sexy pick, but again, dude, terrific value.
I'm in a much better mood now. I'm happy. Now I'm happy we went Tank Dell, because Najee Harris as your RB4 in this offense, or in this team specifically, in the Pittsburgh offense, where he's went 3 straight years playing 17 games with 1,000 yards on the ground. They're going to keep running this thing. So RB4, I mean, sign me up.
Lisa, do you have any thought about Jaylen Warren versus Najee Harris? It feels like there's a lot of love for Jaylen Warren out there. I'm not sure if you have a strong take.
Yeah, Najee Harris seemed so disappointing at the beginning of the season and then pulled it together, like Cody said, finishing with 1,000 yards. I think this quarterback conundrum is going to keep more simplistic plays going Najee Harris's way. We don't really know what's going to happen. Again, we got another calf situation, which was Russell Wilson. Now he's supposed to be the starter, but I think it's probably going to be a back and forth between him and Justin Fields, and that's going to, I think, open up the opportunity for Najee, because I don't think they're going to believe that Russell is going to do what they need him to do, and they're going to keep the ball on the ground.
The reason we use the Ultimate Draft cheat sheet is it's not rankings, it's just leverage against ADP. And I'm glad I took Tank Dell there, because it's looking like what happened was in this simulation, there was a little bit of a wide receiver run, which is pushing these running backs down the board. And I look at Nick Chubb, and look, I know he's coming off a bad knee thing, but it was late in the season, or very early in the season. He has about $7 million of incentives tied up in the fact of a contract that was negotiated. Lisa, you've negotiated a ton. Your agent has negotiated a ton of contracts, right?
A ton, yeah.
Did he or she ever put you in a contract where you could possibly lose $7 million for something that for something that, whether you knew one way or the other, likely at the time, that was going to happen or not going to happen? And for his agents, that was back in like March, whenever they redid his contract. They said if he starts the year on physically unable to perform, his goes from like 12.2 million to 5.76 million or whatever. Yeah, I just saw him squatting. How much was he squatting, Cody?
545 on a Quake bar.
Yeah, look, might want to look at your agent and maybe reevaluate your choices. I don't think that was the best scenario, but sometimes these agents are trying to make nice with teams because they have a bigger deal for another
That's
player.
a good point.
And so they're trying to butter the bread a little bit. And as talent and as an athlete, you've got to be the one that always has that in your mind to know that maybe they don't 100% have your best interest always in mind.
Nick Chubb at the end of the 8th round, though, I'm gonna take him. I could be slotting him in as my RB2 as early as week 3. Like, I mean, come on now. We're gonna pivot back a little bit to wide receivers here. Christian Watson is a guy who I've been trying to bump down a little bit because I've been getting, but it's like this is another thing where I'll probably have an update to version 5.3 in PPR today. That since I've gotten Christian Watson here, I don't love it at the 904. I'm going to get him bumped back down. I'm mainly most worried, Lisa, and I'll be interested to hear from Cody too, that the initial reports is that it's actually Jayden Reed and Romeo Dobbs who are getting work in the 2 wide receiver sets, not Christian Watson right now. I'm going to take him because I'm showing, I got to be honest, this is what the simulation has shown. And what it's showing me, though, is that this is a great way for us to monitor ADPs. When I start getting Christian Watson, I know that he's falling.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really, you're not going to be. There's no love right now for. I see Rico Dowdle on here for right here. I just can't. I mean, if this is where you're at, yeah, Watson's going to be the play. But how do you feel about Jameson Williams this year?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, we'll talk about him. Well, hey, let's talk about him right now.
Yeah,
Jameson Williams versus Rico Dowdle is our next pick. Cody, break down to Lisa. I feel like we've had this conversation a lot, but break down to Lisa what Byron is telling us from Cowboys camp regarding Dowdle, and because I find it interesting, and what our thoughts are on Jameson Williams.
Two big situations, and going into the Rosterwatch training camp tour, I think this is one of the biggest takeaways that you can get is that the broad media only tells you the surface line information. We've gotten a lot of rumblings about, what's Deuce Vaughn going to do? Royce Freeman's now in this team. Zeke's the clear-cut running back one. Byron goes out there and basically lets us know that Rico Dowdle is the 1B to Zeke's 1A. But if he had to choose one, he's picking Rico because Rico's got the fresher legs, which is what you can assume when you have a Zeke that's been in the league for almost a decade, 30 years old, and he was already left Dallas once because he wasn't fresh. So Rico in this backfield is going to get opportunities, I think, as the season goes on. But, man, we're talking about Jameson Williams in this Detroit offense where over the course of the last 3 years that we went to the Combine, it's been talks from Brand Holmes and talks from Dan Campbell about Jameson Williams struggling the last 2 combines. That's what the entire motive has been. It's like, well, he's coming along. Well, he's injured. Well, off field. This year was an entirely different train of thought coming from both Holmes and Campbell, and that's led right into training camp. And it's a different animal right now.
He's dominating, man.
Going off the board,
questions about him.
It's an entirely different animal. This is the Jameson Williams that we saw at Alabama. You can watch it on the tape. You can watch it on the screen. I wish we were up there at that training camp because that would be something to behold, because it's clear that he's the wide receiver 2 in this offense. They lost Josh Reynolds. They didn't add anybody else. It's not Khalif Raymond. It's not Donovan Peoples-Jones. Jameson Williams is the Alabama Jameson Williams, and you're getting a disgusting value here in the 10th round.
Lisa, this is still the Jameson Williams that they took like 12th overall or so. I mean, he was awesome at Alabama. He's so fast, and he was so hurt his first year.
Look, a couple of rounds ago, we were talking about David Montgomery. Anyone who drafted David Montgomery in the very beginning of his fantasy football career was not happy about him and then gave up on him when he started to really come into his prime. Maybe it's a diet thing. Maybe it's a routine thing. Whatever it is, sometimes year 2, year 3 is the year. So I'm not opposed. I'd love to see him come on because we know the talent, the skill set is there. And this could be the year that he's fully adjusted to the NFL and he makes a difference.
Let's take Jameson Williams here and hope that Rico Dowdle falls. And of course, remember, guys, if you want to take a look at the cheat sheet or all of our tools over at rosterwatch.com, if you just have a question for us, man, we answer questions from all of our users all the time during the fantasy football season, your sit start stuff, whatever it is, it's rosterwatch.com/Lisa, rosterwatch.com/Lisa, as Lisa will be joining us for these shows. We have 3 more after this too, Lisa. So
every Friday for the rest of the month, starting next Friday.
Gosh, it's going to be fun. Okay, but this is fun too. We get to take Jameson Williams at the 10:09. Let's see if Dowdle falls. So look, Dowdle falls. So we'll take him there as well, and we'll hope that Byron's right, that it looks like he kind of has the juice. One thing you'll notice here is I feel like this has been a really strong draft at the at the running back and wide receiver positions. Now it's going to start pointing us towards tight end and quarterback, I'm sure. Yeah. And so what we're going to do here is we have a choice between Jaylen Wright, the rookie out of Tennessee, that's a running back for the Miami Dolphins. And we're also going to have Jayden Daniels as a choice here. These two are lined up next to each other on the sheet. So I'm taking Jayden Daniels. Cody, just give them, we only have a few minutes left. Give them the back of the napkin scouting report on Jayden Daniels from everything that we've done as far as our pre-draft evaluation process.
Listen, there's a reason that multiple LSU wide receivers were drafted in round 1 this year. Brian Thomas in Jacksonville had 17 receiving touchdowns. Malik Neighbors, everybody knows who Malik Neighbors is with the Giants right now. This was their quarterback in college. He won the Heisman. And not only is he the modern version of the Marcus Mariotas and Robert Griffin III's, but his arm actually comes with it. He's got a super talented arm that can push downfield, can elevate Terry McLaurin's game, and it's only going to rise. And you're going to be able to get him here round 12, 13, right where Caleb Williams is going off the board. Jayden Daniels has the chance to be very, very special with a strong early season schedule in Washington.
Lisa Ann, are you worried at all about being a Cowboys fan and having Jayden Daniels come into this division?
Of course. This is why we play fantasy, so that when we're let down by the Cowboys, we can still root for our own teams. I mean, what do you mean? Yeah, we know. We know every year the pace picks up, but we just can't get it together before the season to have the conversations be all football based. I think that's really hurting the Cowboys long term.
We have a choice here with this last pick before we're going to go, or actually
2 picks.
Look, this is a 4-way choice, guys. This is a 4-way choice. So these three, they're 123, 124, 125, 126. The cheat sheet goes running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end. So this is a 4-way choice for this 13th round pick.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a tight end yet. We have a choice to take Brock Bowers, who is the rookie Mackey Award winning tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders. Cody, what did Byron say from camp? Was he saying that it's like he was seeing 2 tight end sets? Or
yeah, it's all 2 tight end sets, but also like they put out their unofficial depth chart, which was in 12 personnel, which was with Mayer and Bowers. But he said he was more impressed with what Mayer looked like, and said Bowers looked a little bit slight in his opinion.
Well, we know Bowers doesn't look quite as big as he looks when he plays.
He is. He's not a tight end.
Lisa, what do you think in general about taking two quarterbacks, especially in a spot like this where your first quarterback that you've taken is just a one super high upside, could be a mega producer with his legs, but could struggle in Jayden Daniels? I kind of like the idea of taking Caleb Williams here, the first overall pick in the draft for the Chicago Bears. Great weapons: Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift out of the backfield, and we know that. We know that if you look at the Rosterwatch quarterback strength of schedule tool, Chicago has the best strength of schedule for opposing quarterbacks this season. But you also kind of give up on one of these other guys. Do you have anything against taking just a backup quarterback here and just locking?
I don't. I'm always a backup quarterback person, and I know everybody doesn't play that same way. But for me, it's always been easier when we come into a situation where there's 3 or 4 injuries and you haven't been affected yet, but your league mates have someone on the IR and they've taken another quarterback. Man, it just gets to be trash out there on the wire. So I just like to play that safe game. I know it's not the way everybody does it.
I'm going to take. I agree with Lisa. I'm going to take Caleb Williams there, and then the last tight end that's left of it, and we get Luke Musgrave as a tight end. So that's perfect. I love that. So this team right here: Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams at the quarterbacks, Breece Hall, Devon Achane, Chris Olave, Malik Neighbors, Luke Musgrave, Tank Dell, Dave. Dude, this team is sick, dude. David Montgomery. This is the bench: Najee Harris, Nick Chubb, Christian Watson, Jameson Williams, and Rico Dowdle. So I'm not sure if I auto draft a kicker and a defense, if it'll give me a good grade or not. I don't care. I'm going to war with this team every single time. That's the ultimate draft cheat sheet over at rosterwatch.com. Lisa, before we get out of here, you said just give us your take on like, is it finally your year for the Cowboys? Is this finally
Definitely not. No.
Well, why not?
Definitely not. First of all, we had a great situation a couple of years ago. I love the 1-2 punch with Zeke and Tony Pollard. But getting Zeke back was like the most lukewarm move that we could have made in any sort of situation. I don't feel great about that. And the confusion, the drama, the CeeDee Lamb, none of this is good. Routine is everything when it comes to being successful. And when everybody has all their I's dotted, their T's crossed before camp and gets to go into their groove, what do? They focus on football. Every question is football. They're thinking, breathing, eating. I didn't like the energy between CD and Dak last year, that last game against Green Bay. That was like the toughest game I've ever had to watch as an adult fan. I don't like that kind of. And then remember, there was still the tweeting smack talk with family members that Dak's not the guy. Like, this is all not good. This is just like going back to high school the last year when you kind of had a couple fist fights. Didn't figure them out over the summer. There's still going to be somebody pushing you into the locker. I don't feel great about it. But Dak can do whatever he wants. I think the most interesting thing here is the business behind Dak Prescott and his agent, and the fact that for once, Jerry's going to be up against it in the biggest way yet. So that's going to be interesting after the season. Nothing feels good for a player when they're trying to stay healthy to market themselves the following season. There's nothing more stressful than that. You can overthink everything, and that's what we don't want Dak to be doing this season. So it is what it is. I'm a Cowboys fan, but fantasy football comes first.
Well, look, and I certainly agree there. And as long as Jerry Jones is in charge, look, they might not go too far in the playoffs, but they're always going to give us something to talk about. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so pleased to be here. Remember, rosterwatch.com/Lisa. Go check out the Ultimate Draft Cheat Sheet. It's the only tool that you need for your fantasy football drafts this season. Follow the 3 simple rules at the top of the sheet of paper. An expert quality draft is guaranteed. And it's not just a sheet of paper. It's also an online tool. But I like walking into my drafts with an actual sheet of paper and just sitting it down, dominating. So we'll see you guys next Friday. Same time, same place, right here on the Lisa Ann Fantasy Draft Show. For Cody, for Lisa Ann, I'm Alex. We'll catch you guys next time on Roster Watch.